Welcome to another episode of the No Ceilings Podcast. I'm Tyler Metcalf, joined as always by Tyler Rucker. Rucker, how are we doing?
Fantastic. Very, very, very good. Less than 20 days until college basketball. We got exhibition games going on in college basketball. We've got scrimmages. We've got film leaking on the line. And then NBA next week. Unbelievable. So I'm doing great. I'm just living it up. We're going to be friends tonight because our teams play in the NFL this weekend. Couldn't be a bigger game. It's not just any other game. This couldn't be a bigger game. So love you until Sunday.
I'm looking to get tickets. So if a deal out there presents itself, or if anyone's desperate to get off some Vikings tickets in the Twin Cities area,
don't sell him. He's a Lions fan. Just keep him.
No, go Vikings. Yeah, God, I can't wait to kick the shit out of you.
Hey, it'll be a good game. It's going to be a very good game, I hope. But no, I'm pumped for this one. I'm really pumped for the NBA season. We got a lot of very good basketball coming around the corner, Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about scrimmages. A little before we recorded, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper made their kind of debut against St. John's. Impressive numbers. Haven't watched it yet, but encouraging stuff. Ben Seraph, Noah Senge, very good games against the Portland Trailblazers, which apparently was just unwatchable. Shout out to that broadcast. What is that though?
It was the worst feed I've ever. So for anyone that didn't try to do it, I'm so jealous of you. I was so pumped. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna watch this. It was the Jumbotron feed. So anytime,
always ideal.
Imagine the normal camera, but zoomed in like 20 times. And then every time someone gets in the key, it zooms into like the baseline one. So I had to take like 3 Advil by the first quarter, like the first time out. I was like, what are we doing here? And then there's no commentary, which was pretty sweet. But then you're hearing like all of the background, like beats when they're on defense. It was brutal. So yeah, that was a tough one. I was texting Blazers people being like, do you have like a login for something that like is the TV feed? So yeah, it was tough.
Are the Blazers playing 4-dimensional chess and, kind of keeping that film to themselves?
Yeah, maybe. Chess, not checkers. I mean, hey, you never know. I know they're giving out antennas and stuff. Weird stuff going on board. But hey, I love the grind. So maybe that was a chess move.
Just technical difficulties, happens to the best of us. Unfortunately, no draft stuff tonight. That was the extent of the draft stuff that we're covering tonight. We'll have plenty coming next week, but today, whenever you're listening to it, this episode, we're going to kind of continue the theme of just previewing some of this NBA season, and we're just going to go through every single NBA team and ask one major question that we have kind of facing each team, and then dive into some numbers, some thoughts, some theories, likes, dislikes, all that good stuff. We probably are going to be splitting this up into 2 episodes. So we're going to start with the Eastern Conference. That'll be part 1. Western Conference will be part 2. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. All of you lovely folks watching live on YouTube, we're just going to roll right on through. But if you're listening to just the audio, check out both episodes. So without further ado, let's just dive right in, starting with the reigning champs in the Atlantic Division, the Boston Celtics. Rucker, what does their regular season rim protection look like?
I love that we're going to do this. This is going to be so fun because we're also going to like end up bringing up like 8 more questions per team.
Correct.
Yeah, so big one with the Celtics. The health obviously is the biggest question kind of moving forward. Can they kind of keep that momentum early on without Porzingis? I love Al Horford. I feel like he's found the fountain of youth the last couple of years in Boston, but sooner or later it's like, hey, Father Time's undefeated. I'm really interested to see what they do with that big, hole in the middle. They've gotten really good play from Cornette in limited minutes. They've gotten good play from Tillman. I think they're great at kind of adjusting to who they're facing up against. And then Neemias Queta has been great in limited minutes. So it's going to be really important early on for some of those guys to step up. What are you thinking? It's an important one, and I also think you're trying to keep Porzingis just, hey, let's kick that can down the road as long as we can, even though they say he's looked great. I would not be rushing that one back at all.
Yes, to start off, this feels a little niche, a little bit of a deep cut. And I kind of struggled with the Celtics on what question to ask because I really, in the grand scheme of things, come playoff time, unless they have a devastating injury, I don't really have any major concerns about them. I think they should be the title favorites.
Mhm.
They're the reigning champions for a reason, and they're bringing back basically the exact same team, but to weather the storm. I would imagine they still want that number one seed going into the playoffs, and to have that home court advantage throughout again. And one of the kind of cracks in the foundation, I think, in the regular season could be that rim protection, just simply because of Porzingis being injured. Is like end of June he had surgery, and they said 5 to 6 months, so that puts him around December ish. Um, and that still just kind of feels early because, by all accounts, they should. I would be shocked if they're in trouble. So why bother rushing him back? But when you kind of look at their preseason and what's left on their roster in terms of interior defense, in the preseason, only two players are averaging at least a block per game. And that's Derek White at 1.3. And apologies on the pronunciation here, Dimitrios Kapintsev at 1.0. And they just waived him. So that leaves a lot of minutes for 38-year-old Al Horford, Neemias Queta, Xavier Tillman, Luke Cornett, who are serviceable players in their own right. But are they going to bring enough on a nightly basis to, help the Celtics maintain that they were the number two defense in the league last year?
Yeah, and Horford has been so important for them over the years, like with Robert Williams in and out of injuries, and then now you got Porzingis. He's been just really, really important for them. But I would be stressing caution about, hey, let's just lean on Al to start the year.
Because you want them playoff time healthy, ready to go too.
Yes. I think that first, they're going to be defending. There's going to be a little bit of a rough patch where they got to get some fresh legs because, they got three guys that were playing all summer that you need to buy them some time. You need to, I want to see what young guys can step up. I think Jordan Walsh has looked much better in preseason. I'm
Yes.
be interested to see if they give him a little bit of a run early on, maybe like a road trip where they're like, hey, we're resting one of these guys. Let's see what Jordan can do. His shot looks much better.
Mhm.
I know they got the clock's ticking, but I want to see if Lonnie Walker still gets that last spot. And then, they drafted Shireman. He hasn't really found that groove yet, but I still think this is a guy that could find that in the middle of the season. Boston's going to keep playing a little undersized. They're going to keep leaning on those wings, those forwards. But I think the big man issue is something to watch. Like you need to almost get lucky and get like a buyout big, but I think they just keep playing Cornette and guys like that and kind of match it with who they're playing on a nightly basis. So yeah, I'm right there with you. It's a tough one with the Celtics. Like, hey, everyone's coming back. What are we going to pick them apart about? And it's like, well, okay, I still like their team a lot.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Um, I don't think Celtics fans should have any concerns. It's just about get Porzingis healthy, but in the meantime, I think you can kind of take a lot of the load off of those, backup bigs, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
by further leveraging the athleticism, the perimeter defense, and the rebounding of the wings and guards on that team. So I'm just going to be intrigued to see if they kind of try to keep opposing teams out and really put a lot more pressure kind of on their perimeter defenders, ask their guards and wings to continue rebounding at a really high level, um, because they don't have that kind of traditional shot blocker on the roster. I liked Cada coming out of Utah State. He's had some really interesting years, kind of bouncing around the league. Al Horford is obviously Al Horford. Luke Cornett's been serviceable. But those have mostly been in just kind of spots here and there. So I think it'll be a really interesting, just kind of very specific aspect of their game to
Right.
keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to the New York Knicks. Um, we talked the other week about the Cat trade. I don't think their starting lineup is really all that interesting. I mean, Brunson, Cat, Bridges, OG, Hart, that's very good. Very, very, very good starting five. Where
It's
I get interested.
amazing. I don't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
you're
It's
good.
amazing. I always forget about Hart, and Hart's like one of my favorite glue guys in the league. But every time I'm thinking about the Knicks, I forget. Oh, Josh Hart's there.
Yeah.
That's like probably my favorite wrinkle of that entire lineup. Is like, oh, Josh Hart. Like he got a lot better all of a sudden. So sorry. Go ahead.
No, but that kind of takes me to what I think is just a really fascinating aspect of this team, and that's the bench and who is going to really take that big leap. I think we saw a glimpse of it last year, but how big of a leap is Miles McBride about to take?
McBride's gonna be big for them. Feel like it's a Tibbs, Tasmanian devil. Let him loose. I need to confirm. I feel like they signed like 15 veterans that were just trying to get on the Knicks roster. So I'm looking at names. What are we thinking their bench is? So it's McBride.
So
Precious is still there.
I think those will be the first two off the bench until Robinson's healthy.
And then they got
And then I
Campaign.
think that'll be their 8-man rotation, and then they have Campaign, Shamit, Kolek, Hukporty, Jericho Sims, TJ Warren.
I don't mean this like I follow the NBA all the time. You could have told me Campaign was on 8 different teams right now, and I would
Well,
belie you.
he might be.
It might be. What that would be an incredible thing if you just be like, I play on multiple teams. um, it's big for the bench is going to be humongous story. I think for the Knicks. Yes, the starting five is a potential juggernaut, but it's what's the rotation with that. Now you can take a couple of guys out and try to be like, okay, this is bench lineup is keeping with 2 starters in and mix and matching there. I don't know. Maybe Hart comes out, you move OG to the 3, and Precious goes to the 4. Or, you know what I'm saying? But I do think McBride, it's a very big year for him because he might have to play a little bit of versatility. You might have to play both positions in the backcourt, do a little bit of everything, and really get after it defensively. And we know McBride will do that. He's a dog. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, so and they obviously lost a ton of backcourt minutes
Mm-hmm.
with DiVincenzo being traded, and they lost a lot of kind of on-ball creation with Randall leaving and DiVincenzo as well. Um, I think it's really McBride's opportunity to lose as the solidified first guy off the bench. I think he's going to be in for a massive, massive role because he can play point. He can play that two guard. He can do the dirty work like Josh Hart and DiVincenzo did. He can also run the backup unit as the backup point guard to Brunson. And we saw a lot of that as the year progressed last year, where when we look at his numbers from and how they improved last year, his minutes jumped from 11.9 to 19.5. His points jumped from 3.5 to 8.3. His field goal percentage jumped from 35.8 to 45.2. 3-point percentage jumped from 29.9 to 41. 3-point attempts jumped from 2.1 to 3.9. So 3-point percentage went up by 11 points while doubling the volume. And his assists went from 1.1 to 1.7. In the preseason, he's averaging 28 minutes, 17.3 points, 3.7 assists, 9 3-point attempts, and shooting 37% from 3. I think he's going to be the first guy off the bench. Him and Precious, probably, give or take, depending on the matchup or the night. But when we look at the backcourt depth, I'm not really trusting Campaign outside of the occasional night where he randomly gets hot. Landry Shamet has kind of shown us who he is.
Yeah.
I like Tyler Kolek a lot, but when was the last time that Tibbs played a rookie major
Right.
minutes? So I think McBride has put in his time, and I think he's going to be the sixth man on this team and getting major minutes.
He's got to. I mean, it's a perfect opportunity for him. He's the perfect. Like I've loved Deuce as a prospect. I thought it was a matter of time before he earned his role and
Do you
spot
remember
with
what
this
range you
team.
had him?
I think I had him late first, early second. Um, one of those guys where I was like, I'm a wimp. I should move him up a little bit more. And it was more just because I love the way he played. I love his passion. I probably had him late 20s, maybe like 32, 33-ish. I hope I'm wrong. It's one of those guys where I might have been like, screw this, I'm in. But I just love, like, it does seem like this is the time for, like, he's 24, had a nice step last year. I think the confidence builds and the writing's on the wall. Like, you can clearly take that next step for Deuce. And I love when teams go all in. It gets really scary when you start realizing, oh, hey, our starting five's great. And I'm like, well, then what else? Where are you going? Like, you always have, like, you have to have depth. The Knicks have a ton of firepower if they stay healthy, but you just got to figure out, and this happens with every team that goes like that. You got to figure out now who's the guys after that. Do I think Campaign is going to keep that over Tyler Kolek? Yes. Do I think that clock could run out quick? Yes, I do. But it's looks like it's Deuce off the bench. Like, he's going to be given every opportunity to really be that impactful guy.
All right. Anything else on the Knicks?
Yeah, I'm gonna be such a hater right now. I'd love the Knicks fans to come after me though. I never got the Mitch Robinson extension because he was just always hurt. He's great when he's healthy. He's good when he's healthy. He just is always hurt. And now where are we at? Like, obviously we're waiting for him to come back, but then you're really rolling the dice on, like, can we keep him healthy the rest of the year? Yeah, because they said he's returning, like, or did I read that wrong? I'm sorry.
I didn't see
all
a
over the
timeline.
place. Whatever. Oh, look. Yeah, maybe it wasn't a timeline, but what's the big man depth after Cat? That's what I want to know. I know they got a lot of guys, but it's like, who's the guy? I think Porty looks pretty good the other day.
Porty a lot.
So
Liked him in the draft.
I wanted to send that and
He
say I
was very
found
good at Melbourne last year.
Metcalf's burners here, but big body that can play defense, like, it makes some sense. So I just want to see who steps up on that bench for the whole Knicks, because they have a lot of talent. I just want to see who rises to the surface. That's all I got.
Yeah, and I think if they're able to kind of just survive the regular season, their 6-7 man rotation for the playoffs, it's going to be one of the best if they're healthy. And it's just, the depth isn't for the playoffs; it's to get you to the playoffs and keep your stars healthy for them. So I think it'll be really fascinating, and both in the regular season and the playoffs, I think Miles McBride is in for a massive year. So
Mitchell Robinson targeting January. So my point is just like, okay, like, that's fine, but it is a long time. But I agree. All right. Okay. What do we got?
Let's move on to the Philadelphia 76ers. And as I kind of just ran through and refreshed myself on this roster, it's like, God, Daryl Morey did a lot better job of kind of constructing this team than I remembered.
What do you love about it? Tell me.
Well, so there are a lot more kind of just like role player veterans who I think fill a very specific role and can eat up a bunch of minutes than I initially thought or remembered. Where I'm like, top of the rotation is obviously Maxey, Embiid, Paul George, your big three. Thank God Paul George didn't have a major injury there. That looked nasty. But then you even have guys like Kyle Lowry, Kelly Oubre, Martin, Drummond. And are they superstars? No, but are they really serviceable role players who have figured out how to find their spot in this league and make an impact towards winning basketball? Yeah. And then you still have guys coming off the bench or like deeper in the rotation, like KJ Martin, Yabusele, Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson. And coming into this, or, a couple of weeks ago, I was like, man, they're going to have to really rely on a bunch of young guys. So that kind of leads me to my question of what, if any, young guy is going to kind of step up at the end of this rotation or actually kind of carve out a role in this rotation.
A lot better roster than I was remembering. Because, just some teams you just get caught like, oh, they got the big fish, and then you forget like all the other little moves. Caleb Martin's a good little move on like bouncing back. We thought he was going to have a huge year last year. Eric Gordon, if he finds a fountain of youth. Kelly Oubre just continues to always be like underappreciated.
He was very good last year.
You know what? I understand it could drive you crazy
Yes.
There's games where I'm like, oh my gosh, just stop shooting. But there's also games where it's like, oh, Kelly Oubre is going to win the
It's
game
like,
for you
please don't
guys.
stop shooting.
Yeah, please don't stop shooting. So I think it's a great wild card to always have on your team. Like, okay, kick Kelly out of the game. Like, keep Kelly on the floor. Like, pretty simple. Yabu's a very underrated ad. Drummond's a good one. You know, it's what you said. It's not the sexiest, but your starting five you're hoping is going to be a juggernaut or just fits very well, and then you get some vets that understand their role. Right, like Reggie Jackson even on the roster, like it's just crazy. But McCain's the one I'm watching. Like I think McCain could really be an important piece on this team. So Ricky Council too, I guess. You know, what are you thinking?
Yeah, and I saw earlier today that looks like McCain's okay after big
Yeah.
fall he had the other night. So great news. But he's leading the team in preseason minutes. Ricky Council up to 18 minutes, had some really great summer league games, but then some big time stinkers. So he's still really streaky. And is Nick Nurse really going to trust a young guy like him who's really streaky? His highs are incredibly high and impressive, but is that inconsistency going to get him minutes over KJ Martin, Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson, Yabusele, who might be a little more reliable? They might not be able to hit those peaks, but their lows are a lot better or a lot more reliable, and you know exactly what you're going to get in the 10 minutes that they're out there. And then Adem Bona was a guy that I thought was going to be able to kind of carve out a role, and based on the preseason, no chance in hell unless there's a lot of injuries and he's averaging just 11 minutes compared to 20.8 for Drummond. So
I'm not too surprised. I'm not surprised by that. It's
I,
Drummond.
Neither am I, but I thought there'd still be a route for him to get more than 11 minutes in the preseason.
They're gonna put Bona probably in Delaware a little bit, let him get some run, and then hope year two they're
But
letting him take the cinnamon roll.
It's also a really good reminder of how big that gap can be between rookies and veterans who might not be perceived as awesome all-star level players, but are just really serviceable backups who rebound the crap out of the ball, do a bunch of the dirty work. And again, you know exactly what you're going to get. You know exactly what you're going to get from Andre Drummond.
Yeah.
On a nightly basis. And
Those
Bona
are
is a wild card. So when we look at their young guys a couple weeks ago, I was like, God, some of these guys might be in the rotation a lot. And now it's like, is McCain going to break the top 8? I'm not sure.
Early on, probably not. A tradition unlike no other. We always get like, hey, new is great. And then all of a sudden you realize guys like Drummond realize what their role is in the second half of their career. And they continue to be valuable pieces because everyone's like, our backup big rebounds the hell out of the ball. And we understand we're fine with Drummond. So
and can eat up minutes for our superstar center who's hurt all the time.
And that's also why you keep someone like Drummond, because if Embiid misses time, you thrust Drummond in the starting lineup. Now Bona becomes important to come out and give you some fresh minutes. So you got to have depth. We were just talking about that. Like Philly's gonna be interesting as long as they stay healthy. Big guy in the middle. So if he's healthy, this team is gonna be a joy. If he gets banged up, Maxey and PG, you're gonna have to carry you for a while, but I would love to see.
And there's another big injury question mark as well.
Yeah, a big if. So might be some Maxey time for the Maxey and Kelly Oubre show for a while, but I'm excited to watch the Sixers.
Okay, let's move on to a team that I'm not sure we're quite as excited to talk about, the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm thrilled.
How many shot attempts is Cam Thomas going to actually average this year?
So what did he average last year? 18?
Yeah. Let me run through some numbers.
I knew you'd roughhouse.
So in the preseason, he's in the preseason. Obviously, all of this is, take the preseason numbers with a grain of salt. It's a preseason, but he's leading the team with just 10.3. Last year in 31.4 minutes, he led the team with 18. And with Bridges, Dinwiddie, Walker, and O'Neal gone, so are 41.3 shot attempts. Last year, his usage rate of 29.5 ranked in the 95th percentile, and his assist to usage of 0.51 ranked in the 5th percentile. Just incredible.
Bucket getter. He knows this game is all about one thing: buckets. I love Cam. I still am a fan. They and the Wizards are going to have an all-time tank off this year. It's going to be incredible. I like Washington's version. Yeah, a couple other teams. I like Washington's version a little bit better just because they're going to be developing some real nice pieces. But yeah, Cam's just going to be getting buckets. Did he sign it? Is he extension eligible?
Oh, God.
Is this an extension year? Because that number might double. Whatever I was going to say might double. He's got to be up for it, right?
I believe this is his last year. Yeah, he's a restricted free agent next year.
Oh, the RFA.
So, again, in 31 minutes last year, when they still had Bridges, Dinwiddie, Walker, and O'Neal for the bulk of the year, he averaged 18 attempts a game. With those guys gone, how many shot attempts is he averaging? Over under 25.
25 is a big number.
It is. Cam Thomas doesn't think so.
If he speaks in the third person all year, over. I'm only, that's a big number. I'm gonna say under because I think he will be in the 20s, but I think it's gonna be like 21. You think over? No way. 25's huge.
It is. I'm just gonna run through.
Give me some comparison.
I'm going to run through their roster. Nick Claxton, Day'Ron Sharpe, Noah Clowney, Dariq Whitehead, Zaire Williams, Jalen Wilson, Amari Bailey, Jackie Kui. Apologies on the pronunciation. Killian Hayes, Keon Johnson, Jalen Martin, Tyrese Martin, Dorian Finney-Smith, Trendon Watford, Dennis Schroeder, Ben Simmons, Bojan Bogdanovic, Cam Johnson, Shake Milton.
I want to point this out. Tyrese Maxey attempted 20.3 last year.
Yeah.
On that roster with that big man. I'm going to say under because I think he'll get like 23. Okay. Wow, that's amazing. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to watch them. I'm going to force myself to do it because I just want to see what's the vision for this team. I think you're clearly trying to play a bunch of young guys and say like, hey, who's around for this? You're trying to figure out a direction. I want to see what Jalen Wilson, he should get some way more minutes this year. I like his potential. Clearly, let's just be obvious. They're trying to get the number one pick so they can start the direction of their team. But you also have to be like, hey, if we don't get that, we have to be ready to pivot and find a new direction and alter, I think smart execs and GMs adjust on the fly.
Okay,
like
so
you start building your roster after what you land and what starts shining and coming together. So go ahead, Metcalf. You were about to cook about something.
Sorry, so 25 may have been a bit aggressive.
It's a very aggressive number.
It would be the most shot attempts averaged throughout a season. The highest.
AI wasn't even that like high, right?
Just quick going back through the years. The next highest would be James Harden at 24.5 in the 2018-19 season.
Over.
So if there's anyone to do it, it's Cam Thomas. I don't have anything else with this team. They're going to be bad. But hey, hopefully they're at least fun. Let's move on to another team who I think could be quite bad. The Toronto Raptors. And just what is the plan with this team? What are they doing?
I'm very excited about Grady Dick lately. About it starts to look like, hey, there's a sophomore candidate that might be breaking out. I don't know what they're doing after that. I love Scotty Barnes. Everybody knows this about me. What are your thoughts? Hit me with it. I just don't get the vision.
Yeah, they're caught in the middle. I don't know what they're doing. And starting five of Quickly, Barnes, Barrett, Podol, and Grady.
RJ Barrett leads my idea guy rankings. We should do an episode on that.
He's
Power
fine.
rankings of idea guys. He's fine, but I think teams and people try to convince themselves that he's better or he's going to develop
Yeah.
into like I feel like for years we'll be like, oh man, he's close to getting that next step. It's like, okay, how long do we keep saying that until we finally say, like, maybe he's not gonna take that next step? Maybe this is just what he is. I liked the Davion move. I don't know if I love it. It could be a very smart one. Quickly and RJ, I'm just like, okay, fine.
They're good. They're pros. They're NBA players. But at that price point, I'm not sure they're guys that you.
What are we doing
hold
with Bruce
around.
Brown?
He'll be gone. I think half this team is going to be gone. But that would also require them to commit to a direction.
Like what I hate with teams like this is when you do the, hey, let's run it just to see what we're working with. And you go in a little bit of a heater and then all of a sudden you get cold and you get to that all-star break and you're like, fire sale? And then you're like trying to tank on the fly. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh, we landed the 6th pick because we were trying to, you know what I'm trying to say. It's an island of misfit toys. And I don't know how they come together. Because you look through, it looks like a 2K roster right now. And I mean that in the nicest way. It looks like they just are putting a bunch of stuff together and trying to figure out where they're going to move stuff. Like eventually, it's what you said. They have a lot of guys that they're like, we're going to be able to move these guys and sell them for assets. But then it's like, are you going to just keep doing this over and over again? Because I do like some of their talent. It just
none of
lacking.
It seems to fit together.
Yes.
Like individually in a vacuum. Like I like Quickly as a player. I obviously really like Scotty Barnes. I like Barrett. I like Podol. I like Grady Dick. I don't like any of them together. None of them seem to complement each other.
And I don't mean to laugh.
Like it's a team without an identity.
That's where they're at. Because I do like a lot of these guys. I like Grady Dick. I think he's going to be a nice piece with Scotty Barnes. It just doesn't seem like there's a clear, like, okay, these guys all fit together. It seems like it's trying to force these pieces of the puzzle. And it's like, I don't know if these are the right ones. And maybe that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to find out, like, hey, who's going to cement themselves as the right pieces. Then we will move everybody else. Bruce Brown, they can get rid of. They also could be like, hey, we love Bruce Brown. We're keeping him around.
I think you got to ship him off for.
I think you do too. But something. You also could just have him around the young guys. And I think that's important stuff. But it's just a roster where I like a lot of the talent. But I'm like, okay, who is here moving forward? And that's what the rebuilding team, you're trying to figure out who's going to be there moving forward. It's a team that clearly Cooper Flagg would fix a lot of things. But I'm right there with you. I don't.
You think Adam Silver is going to let Cooper Flagg go? Come on.
Okay.
Okay.
Harper, maybe.